Today, I've got a special guest for you, Patricia Bradley. She's a USA Today best-selling author, and Patricia Bradley is the recipient of numerous awards, including an Inspirational Reader's Choice Award in Suspense, a Selma winner, was a Carol and Daphne du Maurier finalist. Her romantic suspense novels include the Logan Point series, the Memphis Cold Case novels, and the Natchez Trace Park Rangers. She is now hard at work on the second book in her new Pearl River series set in the Cumberland Plateau area above Chattanooga. The first book in the series, Counterattack, will release mid-2023. She has conducted writing workshops for American Christian fiction writers and the Mid-South Christian Writers Conference, the Ken 10, and Scrivener Retreats, where she was the keynote, the Memphis American Christian Fiction Writer Group, and the Bartlett Christian Writers Group. Geez, that's a mouthful. She and her two cats call Northeast Mississippi home. The South is also where she sets most of her books, and when she has time, she likes to throw mud on a wheel and see what happens. So here she is, Miss Patricia Bradley. All right, so good to see you, Miss Pat, and it's been a minute.
It has been a minute, but you're looking good.
Well, thank you. Little background, I got to work with Miss Patricia for maybe almost 5.5 years.
Absolutely.
With Aiming for Healthy Families, and it was an organization, Christian organization, nonprofit. And so I got to know her then, and I knew then she was really, really focusing in on her writing. And gosh, you have blown up.
It did. It's like I spent 34 years writing, and then all of a sudden I'm an overnight success.
Yes, that's literally the way it happened.
It is.
And so when I first met you, I don't know, you may have had one or two books, maybe even just
the first
smaller
book
ones?
the first book came out in
After?
2014.
Yes. Okay. So during that time, you came out with your Memphis
First book.
series.
No, my first book was the Logan Point series.
Logan Point. Sorry.
It was the Logan Point series, and it was set in a fictional town in Mississippi, right next to Memphis, because I really wanted to use Memphis because I knew Memphis, and I knew the area around Memphis, in Mississippi in particular, because I really wanted to set all my books in Mississippi, because I'm proud of Mississippi. And so those came out, and then I got a contract for another one. But actually, I got a 3-book contract, and that was almost unheard of for an unpublished author and an unknown author.
Wow.
So that was a God thing.
Yeah.
I wanted 1 book. He gave me 4
Absolutely.
eventually. And then I'm starting the 16th book.
That's awesome.
Since 2014.
Awesome. Well, for those of you that don't know or you haven't caught on to this yet, we sit in the upper northeast corner of Mississippi. So we're kind of in a unique area where we're probably, 30 minutes from Alabama, 20 minutes to Tennessee, but Memphis,
4 minutes to
or
Tennessee.
4 minutes to Tennessee, and then
and an hour and 20 minutes to Memphis.
Yes, so Memphis is very, very close, and so we tend to go there quite often.
It's easier.
Very easy.
It's easy, especially the outlying.
So
and I grew up there, and my cousins live in Collierville, so I go there quite often still.
Good.
So,
okay, so tell me, how did you get into writing?
Okay, I was always a reader, and when I turned 35, I couldn't sleep, which that was a little bit early, and one night as I stared at the ceiling, a man appeared in my vision, and behind the backdrop was, he was standing at a window, and smokestacks were billowing out, and he turned and looked at me, and he said, "This wasn't the way my life was supposed to turn out." And I thought, wow. So I spent the time I couldn't sleep telling myself his stories of what happened that made his life not turn out well. And then I began to write short stories. And the very first one I ever wrote, Woman's World published, which is unheard of. And they asked for 2,000 words, 2,500 words, and I sent them 4,500 words, which should have automatically, back then you sent it on an SASE, S-A-S-E. Normally they would stick it in an envelope and send it back and say, "Learn our guidelines." But she liked the story. She cut it, and they published it in Woman's World. And I think that was an encouragement from God, literally, to keep going. And
Absolutely,
I did.
Yeah.
And then they published 2 more. And around 2010, I got serious about writing a novel. I had already written one that will never ever see the light of day because it has been shredded. Although I did take characters from that one and put it in my first book. And so from there, in 2010, I went to some writer retreats that were like college courses. Susan May Warren and Rachel Hawk, who Rachel is, both of them are New York Times bestsellers, and they have poured themselves into helping other women.
Which is awesome.
It is. And so we went to retreats, and each year would build on the year before. And from the first year to the second year, I got the Most Improved Writer Award.
Oh, awesome.
Because I was pretty bad. But anyway, and then before the last retreat, I was already contracted.
That's amazing.
And that was amazing. That was a God thing.
Sure. So now you have 16 books. You have one that's about to release.
Yeah, I'm actually starting the 16th. I had Harlequin bought 2, and they were sweet romances, but they wouldn't let me kill anybody, so I went back to writing the romantic suspense.
And you write a lot of Christian.
Baker Book, Revell is a Christian publisher, one of the top, and they do fantastic marketing.
Yeah.
Although I do quite a bit myself.
Right.
But they're a very good company to work for.
Good deal. And so you also like to play in pottery.
I do. I have not done it lately. I have several pieces sitting on my kiln that need to be glazed and fired that I just haven't had time to get to.
I think that's what I remember most about you is you playing in pottery and
and I use that in the abstinence program.
Yes, yeah. And so the abstinence program was the nonprofit we worked with. We did tobacco education, sexual abstinence and things. But I just remember you doing pottery a lot and loving and enjoying that.
I did. I love doing that, but I love writing more.
Sure. And I think that's something that we try to tell people, like, if you don't love it,
don't do it.
Don't do it. Mm-mm. So what is your advice there?
Well, the thing is, writing is the hardest work I've ever done. And you have to love it to sit there for hours on end telling yourself stories or actually my stories play out like a movie in my head, and they have to go from my head to the computer, and they never sound as good as they do in my head, but but it's hours, and a lot of times you don't get any feedback. A lot of times you get rejection slips. I was fortunate that I didn't. I mean, I did early on. I got a few rejections, but I wasn't ready to be published. I'm glad that I got the rejection because those books would have been taken down if they had been published because they weren't ready.
Right.
And that, to me, success is that place in the road where you prepare yourself so that when God opens the door, you can walk through it.
Well, it's like you're showing up every day.
You show up every day.
It doesn't matter what
how
feedback
you
get it, or like you said, how you feel. You show up every day.
And I have. But people say, do you have writer's block? I say every day. I sit down at the computer and I got a blinking cursor looking at me, and it's like, So if I just start typing, though, the ideas start coming.
Sure.
The story unfolds.
And too, that's something that I want to portray to my listeners is that you've got to start somewhere.
Yeah, you have to show. You got to show up.
Exactly, you have to show up. It doesn't matter if you're never going to be perfect.
Mm-mm.
And just like you said, you may start out and you're not really very good.
No, I was terrible.
But without
same way with pottery.
Exactly,
I was terrible. I went to a guy down in Fulton for a 3-day workshop, and he has always told people that I was not his best student. But I was the most determined, and I think that's what it takes is determination.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, you've got to have that fire in the belly that the politicians talk about.
Absolutely,
because the hard times are coming.
Sure, and it's I tell Cole all the time. He plays basketball, and it's 90% mental. It's the rest. Yes, is talent, but the rest is what you put into it, what you make of it.
Look at Michael Jordan. He couldn't even make his high school basketball team.
Exactly.
But he practiced and practiced and practiced, and that's it. I mean, you have to. You have to show up.
Yes. Tell me the importance of, like you said, your workshops that you went to.
I learned what publishers, I learned how to write, basically. I learned that you don't tell, you show, which, a lot of people don't understand. I learned that you don't go from one character to another in the same scene in their thoughts. You have to stay in one character's point of view through that whole scene. Or, of course, I think that is mostly a lot in Christian fiction. They do not like the head hopping, but because I see it a lot in general fiction. John Grisham is one of the worst, I think, but he's a fantastic storyteller, so people keep reading.
Sure.
But and you have to you have to learn what the rules are so that you can break them.
Absolutely.
Because if you don't know the rules, you'll break them the wrong way.
Well, I think too, just having someone to guide you, like a mentor, someone to tell you, yes, you can, but this is going to happen, or just to prepare you for things that you're not used to.
Right.
And I'm the same way. I may be a business coach, or I may have done this for so many years, but there are still things that people have done that I have not experienced.
Right.
And it's so important to learn and
because you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly.
That's you have to do the experience before you learn what you don't know.
Sure. So can you tell us a little bit about the book that's about to launch?
Let me stop and think, because I am short story.
You're probably writing one. And then
I'm writing a short story and working on the second book that I'm changing locations, but this is the fourth book. And I forgot to bring it in. This is the fourth book in the Natchez Trace Park Rangers. And it is, there's an ISB agent, which is Investigative Services branch of the National Park Service, and there are only 33 in the whole United States. So I've used 2 or 3 of them.
Yeah, wow.
But, she started out as a violent crimes, and she was almost killed. And so she decided she didn't want to do that anymore, but so she became a white-collar investigator, which they don't even have, but you do get poetic license. And so she is being sent to Natchez, where her grandfather lives, and then someone starts trying to kill her.
Wow. So you just told me you've been in where?
Right.
And down
I was
south.
doing a book club.
Okay, doing a book club. Okay. But you have to do a lot of research, too.
I do. I had never been to Natchez. I wanted to write a story. I sent a proposal in to my editor for the next series, and I wanted to do a series on the Natchez Trace. And I'm thinking up around Cherokee, maybe even Franklin. And for some reason, when my editor researched the area, she fell in love with Natchez, and she said, "That's fine, but we're setting it in Natchez." And that was good because I'd never been, and I wanted to go.
And it's a beautiful place.
It is. I love Natchez. I think I'd move there in a heartbeat.
Yes, if you haven't visited, you need to go because it's a pretty nice place.
I did one of the tours with the older homes because I set a lot of my books in. The Park Service owns Melrose, so one of the books is set there, and then on the Trace there's the First Inn, Mount Locust, and I set the second book there, and I used the different locations down there, and there's fabulous places to eat. If you go eat at Jughead's or Fat Mama's Tamales, or it's Under the Hill. Magnolia Grill is great. That's in the last book.
Lots of great places.
Yeah, there are.
So some of your a lot of your settings they're real, and then your characters
populated.
Right.
Right. And the series I'm working on now, though, it will be Logan Point was half and half. I used Memphis, but I made Logan Point up. This next series that I'm working on is the Pearl Springs, it's the Pearl River series, which was supposed to start out in South Mississippi, and I decided I wanted to go to the mountains, so we moved the series up to the Cumberland Plateau around Chattanooga.
Good deal.
So and that's going to be fun.
Yeah, that will be fun. So, do you see yourself just continuing these series?
That's something. The thing is, writing, there's no age discrimination in writing, and so as long as I have a brain and if God gives me the stories, I will continue to write.
Well, good deal.
Because I love to do it. It's not work.
Yes.
And if you love what you do, it's not work.
Absolutely. So
you get tired, but it's not work.
Yes. So what is your most favorite thing about
It's like
writing?
asking, the favorite thing about writing. People won't believe this. Editing, rewriting,
yes,
because writing is rewriting.
Yes.
And that first draft is, and I'll use a cliche, is like pulling teeth. It is very hard to get the story in my head, or even to see where it's going.
Yeah.
And that I do not like the first draft. A lot of people love it and I like thinking about it before I start and kind of getting the story in my head.
Yeah.
But my favorite part is actually the editing, and that's polishing what I do. And what I go through, my books are 90 to 100,000 words, which is 330 to 350, 75, 375 pages. And I go through and lay down the suspense line because I don't like to write the romance line. It's the hardest part for me to write. And so I lay down the suspense line, which there will be some romance, but and that'll come in at 80 or 85,000. And I go back and then I lay down the romance and develop it more.
Yeah.
So, and I do like the rewriting better than anything.
Well, that process is so interesting. I think I don't write novels, but just writing blogs and articles and things.
Yeah.
To me, it's fun to go back and just scribble all over your page and insert words and mark something out, and it's just part of the creative process, I guess. It's a little like gardening. You're constantly cultivating and constantly.
You are. Even when and a lot of writers write the first draft, they sit down and write it straight through. But I go back, I edit as I write, because a lot of times I have to go back and see what I wrote.
Right, sure.
But I like to. A lot of times I will edit as I go. I'll edit maybe what I wrote the day before, and then because that gets me started and into the story. Yes.
Well, I think I'm very similar to you. About 35, I quit sleeping.
Right.
So you have to find something to do, and I shared with my listeners before that I keep a notebook in my bed, and I've got 2 or 3 books in there, and I may have an idea at 3 a.m. and I write it down, and then you get up the next morning and you're thinking, what was I thinking? Sometimes you have those moments, and then sometimes they're
very good.
They're very good.
Yeah, they do. And always, and if I have a thought in the night, I speak it in my phone because I know I won't remember it the next morning. And at night it seems like it's such a fantastic idea. Not always, but a lot of times though I will remember something that I need to put in.
Yes.
Because in my stories there are always at least 3 people who could be the villain, and so they have to have means, motive, and opportunity, and so. Sometimes I have to go back and put that in, and I'll think, "Oh, you didn't do this."
Right.
But if I don't speak it in my phone, I'll forget it.
I'm the same way. So, but a lot of times they're really great ideas, or really things that you need to do. So, okay. So, what do you think for a beginning writer? What is the most important thing I think that you can tell them?
Learn the craft. There are several books that I would suggest. Anything by James Scott Bell.
Okay.
Susan May Warren has some good writing things. Kate Wieland, Weiland, has some fantastic. I started, and you never quit learning as a writer.
Right.
And even though I have 15 books behind me, every time I start writing, it's like, how did I do this now?
Yeah. So
I go back and I'll refresh. But Kate Wieland has what she calls plot points and pinch points.
Okay.
And she has it broken down that at 12%, at the beginning you have the hook, at 12% you have what they call the inciting incident, the thing the problem that starts your character's journey. And then you have the end of Act 1. I write in a 3-act structure with the middle. It's really a 4-act structure. And at the end of Act 1, the character goes through a door that they can't go back through. The door closes, and until they fix the problem, they can't go back. And when they go back, they will not only have solved the problem, but things will be better, and they will be changed. So, so you go into, and then there's a percentage like 37% is the first pinch point, which is a reminder of the villain or the antagonist. I mean, and that has made it a little bit easier because I'm a pantser.
Yes.
I can't outline. I have tried outlining, and it doesn't work, but this does.
Yes.
If I can go through and write down a sentence, not the whole thing, but just what I think, and it never, a lot of times it's not that, but what I think the end of Act One will be, and that reminder, and then the middle where it's a mirror moment where the character learns something new about for me it'd be the mystery, or they feel like it's a point where they either die or they learn something and move forward, and then you have your stakes. Every story is about death. The death of a dream, physical death, or the death of a career. I mean, your stakes have to be really high, or people are going to lose interest.
Sure.
It doesn't have to be a physical death, but something. If the character doesn't succeed, then something's going to die, either within them or themselves.
Sure.
So that keeps the stakes up.
So learning the trade, figuring out what that outline is and what the specs are. When your books are all very interesting, I think I've read 4. I read all of the Logan Point series, and then I have to say I have not read any of the rest, but I will. I'm going to check that out.
It takes time to read.
Yes.
I mean, time.
Yes. And
you have to give up something to read.
Exactly, and I have about 10 different books going at any given moment.
No, I don't.
So
I can't do that.
I do that all the time. But okay, so tell our listeners where they can find your new book and your other books.
Yeah, well, if you go to my website, which is www.ptbradley.com, there's a tab that says books, and there are links to the major markets, but they're on Amazon, BNN. They're anywhere you can get books, they're there.
Good deal. And so you've got your website, and we'll put all this in the show notes too, so people can click on that link. And then you've got an Instagram and
Facebook, Twitter. I don't have a very strong Pinterest.
Yeah.
But I do have Instagram. I focus on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Okay, good deal. Well, we'll put that in the show notes as well. But any final words, or where you see yourself?
No matter what you want to do, realize that you're going to have to invest.
Absolutely.
You've got to invest time. I've invested money, and you have to invest yourself.
Yes.
Because if you don't, it's just not going. It's not going to work.
Well, I think too many people, they expect results overnight.
Right.
And just like you said, you put in a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of effort, and the same with anything.
Yeah. I look at it like if someone wants to become a doctor or a surgeon, it's not an overnight process.
Right.
Well, writing isn't either. A lot of people think, well, I could write a book.
Yeah.
I encourage them, if you think you can write a book, write one.
Yes. Yes. Well, I know it's, I've been thinking about it and just processing, but mine wouldn't be similar to yours. Mine would be more like my personal story.
Right.
But, so, and like I've told you, I've got journals of entries, but it's a huge undertaking.
It is. It's not to be taken lightly.
Right. So
writing is the hardest work I've ever done.
Wow.
And I've done a lot of hard work.
Yes. But I think all of those other jobs, just like mine, I've been all over the spectrum, but they've led me to where I am today.
Absolutely.
And the same with you. They've led you to where you are.
And I use everything. A writer uses everything. I use things from my life, and they'll show up in my book, different things, because I've had some weird things to happen, and it's fun to put them in a book.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you coming and talking to us today, and
it was fun.
Good. I look forward to reading your new book.
Yeah. Deception is the 4th book and the final book in Natchez Trace Park Range.
And it comes out August the 2nd. Okay, August the 2nd. So be sure to look at that, and you can find it on Amazon and through your website. So, all right. Well, that's all we've got. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. This has been fun.
Good.
Yeah.
So I really hope you enjoyed today's episode. It was great getting to see Miss Patricia again. Missed her, and it's been a minute since I've talked with her. So it was really nice getting to catch up, have a cup of coffee, and talk about her new book coming out. If you'd like to learn more, go visit Miss Patricia at www.ptbradley.com, or you can find her on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So Patricia Bradley, you're going to want to check her out. If you enjoyed today's episode, leave us a review at Apple Podcast or just on our Facebook or Instagram. We'd love to hear from you and love to hear what episodes you'd like to hear or what other business owners you would like to glean information from. So leave us a review, Make sure you follow us or subscribe so you can hear all of our episodes and upcoming adventures. We look forward to chatting with you soon. Hope you have a wonderful day.